Bears, blog, boys, you know it all, computer, analytic, geeky nerds. Michael Schneider, Tom Cavanaugh, the Bear, blog, boys, know-it-alls, doing some podcast somewhere. Nobody wants to hear you. Geeks, you pencil-pushing, skinny jean-wearing geeks, you.
Coming to you live from our mom's basement, this is the Bears Blog Boys podcast. I'm your co-host, Tom Cavanaugh, here with my good buddy and other co-host, Michael Snyder. Snyder, man, it was a rough game on Sunday. Sounds like we opened the podcast, our recap podcast for the last couple, pretty much the same. It was a rough game against the Lions. They really poured it on. I believe the score was 51-21. How you been doing, buddy? I know that was a tough one to watch.
Yeah, it was pretty pathetic, Tom. That kind of took me back to when, during the Trestman era, I think we lost to the Packers. Maybe it was like a similar score, it was like 50 to something. And then we lost like next week to the Patriots. I think it was 50 to something, or vice versa, or something like that. Very, very low time. A lot of people are punting the season. You go on Bears Twitter, and man, it's just like a wake and funeral with there, man. It is a rough spot for Bears fans. I don't think a lot of us expected to be 0-2, but to be 0-2 and losing to the Lions, giving up 50 points, 500 yards, Tom, that was like, being kicked when you're already down. So rough spot right now, Tom.
Definitely a rough spot. Yeah, that's exactly how it felt. I mean, I was watching it with our friend and their parents, and it was just like every single drive, it found like they found a way to screw it up on defense and then sometimes on offense. I think there were some positives to take away, and we'll talk about those, but I kind of just want to get the negatives out of the way and then focus on what is worth taking forward. The negatives by far to me, Snyder, and the biggest concern I had from this game was the defensive performance. I mean, I realized the Lions offense is good. I realized like they probably had a pretty fluky bad week in week one, and the Packers defense is really good. But to just look as unprepared as they did, the Bears did against that offense is what really concerned me. And then I think you really saw a talent gap with this defense and how they want to play. Get exposed against this Lions offense. Snyder, I was just looking at some of the stats. The craziest stat to me in this game was Jared Goff had 14 play action attempts. He had 198 yards. He averaged 14.1 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns with a perfect passer rating. Again, I'll repeat that, a perfect passer rating, and added a full expected point. That was by far the most in of the week, right? He had a plus 1.10 EPA on each play action drop back. The next closest was 0.65. So he added a full expected point whenever they use play action. Snyder, why that is very disheartening for me is this is the Lions. What were you expecting them to do, right? Like this is what they do. How did it go this poorly when this wasn't a changeup? We knew this is what they want to do. This is what Jared Goff is really good at. And the secondary looked unprepared. The linebackers specifically looked really unprepared. And the pass rush just could not generate any pressure on these plays. On those plays, he averaged a time to throw of 3.12 seconds. So
a lot.
It was just whatever they wanted in the play action game, they were getting.
Yeah, so I'm guilty of getting excited, right? I'm very guilty of watching a game, with my family, being fired up, And last week, or against the Vikings, I thought the defensive line played better than I expected, and I kind of got fired up about it. But then now I got to remember, J.J. McCarthy hasn't looked good, right? Mm-hmm. So you look at this Bears defensive line performance against the Lions, only 5 total pressures across the game and 0 sacks, right? Mm-hmm. That is really bad for a defensive line, Tom. Don't hold me to this, but I think I came across a tweet that said we were like top 5 in defensive line spending. Here, I mean, I can even break it down just a little bit. I mean, we paid Dale a lot of money. We paid Grady Jarrett a lot of money. Montez Sweat is one of the highest paid edge defenders in the league. We have high investments on the defensive line in Gervon Dexter. Zach Pickens obviously didn't work out. Shamar Turner, healthy scratch. So, my concerns going into the season were the defensive line. Like, I thought there were guys that, okay, maybe they could collapse the pocket. Maybe they could be solid against the run game. Like, they're strong, beefy dudes who, aren't going to get tossed, and that's what it was during like maybe the first 3 years of the Poles era. We had defensive linemen who were just getting dragged across the field, push, and just lose all penetration. I think they overcorrected by just finding like beefy 4-3 defensive line type of dudes, but they cannot generate pass rush. They can't win one-on-one and disrupt the quarterback. And now when you have a professional veteran quarterback like a Jared Goff, and you give him 3+ seconds to throw, he's going to make you pay, right? And so it actually goes back to the preseason, Tom. I know Patrick Mahomes is Patrick Mahomes, but I said it then, right? Like, that's a guy who could, sense pressure so well, navigate through it, go through his read. And, giving him that time to throw, they're going to make you pay. And, obviously J.J. McCarthy, that he wasn't going to make us pay. But these experienced quarterbacks like a Jared Goff, if you're only pressuring them 5 times and you're not getting home not once all game, Tom, it's going to be similar results, right? I'm not saying 50 points every game, but these guys, they're going to make you pay. And again, the defensive line investments, I get what I know what they did, but the return on investment, Tom, it just looks silly at this point.
It looks very silly. That's been kind of the talking point on Bears Twitter. It's not like the Bears haven't thrown resources at it. Like you just listed off where they rank it among each team, and they're just getting so little return on the guys that they invested in. Grady Jarrett, only 2 pressures. I think Deo only had like 1, or I don't know.
0.
Yeah, I don't even know if he had a pressure.
0. Yep.
And the disheartening part for me, Snyder, is obviously Grady Jarrett did not have the good game. And Gervon Dexter had a really rough game as a pass rusher. And that was the matchup I think they really needed to take advantage of, because the Lions, where they struggled last week, I think Sewell had a bad game against Micah Parsons, but where they struggled last week was among that interior offensive line. There's 2 new starters and 1 guy who changed positions from guard to center. So, Gervon Dexter, when we're expecting a leap, and Grady Jarrett, when we're expecting some veteran presence to kind of add to this pass rush room, defensive line room, for them to have the games they did is really, really disheartening. And Steiner, I just think it goes back to like defensive line has been the bane of Ryan Poles' existence. He's getting a lot of slack right now on Twitter, and justifiably so, about kind of where this roster is at under 4 years of his direction. But I think he's just really, really struggled to evaluate defensive line, to value what actually matters in defensive linemen. Because it's a long season. Grady Jarrett could take the next step, but there were a lot of red flags to make that signing. He was a declining player, coming off some of the worst seasons of his career, coming off a major injury a year prior to this season they signed him. And they just went out and signed him right away to big money, hoping that move would work out. And I just think there was a lot of reasons that would tell you not to make that signing. Again, long season, maybe Grady Jarrett can turn it around. Gervon Dexter, nice player, but again, not very productive in college. I think he again, it's a long season. Maybe he can turn it around, but I think we have a pretty good idea of what Gervon Dexter is, and that's not like a true difference-making pass rusher. He's an okay player. He's a solid player. I just don't know if we've seen at any point of his career, did he get better from year 1 to year 2? Yeah, but has he ever been like this dominant down in, down out pass rusher? Probably not. And that's kind of what this team is really, really missing. And the Lions really, really expected that. On top of that, Steiner, Dennis Allen was pretty much middle of the pack in terms of bringing blitzes. And I think in order for this defensive line to be salvaged at all, that's going to have to change. He's going to have to ramp up the pressure, because against the better offensive lines, against the better quarterbacks, the Bears don't have the guys that they can create their own pass rush. They just don't. They're going to have to find ways to manufacture it, especially if Dennis Allen wants to play the way he does on the back end and coverage. Because if you're matching things, if you're playing a lot of man coverage, those guys are going to be covering forever, and it's going to lead to explosive plays like we saw against the Lions.
Yeah, Tom, I could talk all day about this defensive line. Tom, I even, before I was I promise you, Tom, before I snoozed off for the day, I just had a thought in my mind. I went back and looked at Ryan Pace's first 4 years assembling a defensive line, and I looked at Ryan Poles' first 4 years assembling a defensive line. And I will die on the hill. I'm not a Ryan Pace truther. Don't get me wrong. I'm not defending him, but I'll always say that he inherited a significantly worse situation than Ryan Poles. I understand the no first round pick. I get that, but a lot of fans or a lot of people that I interact with on Twitter don't remember how bad Phil Emery was. Like that guy was so bad at drafting, Tom. He left us with just nothing there, right? I'll go real quick on this, Tom. Ryan Pace in his first 4 years gave us Leonard Floyd. I'm kind of in the middle with that one. Eddie Goldman, Akeem Hicks, Bilal Nichols, Ray Robertson Harris, Khalil Mack. And we had a very solid defensive line. Ryan Poles in his first 4 years has had about 13 swings. He almost signed Ogunjobi, DeMarcus Walker, Justin Jones, Al-Qaeda Muhammad, Andrew Billings, Dexter, Pickens, Sweat, Booker, Deo, Jarrett, Turner. And they all had about the same resources. But, Tom, there's a big disparity in just evaluating individual defensive line talent and what's actually important, right? Yes. Again, I think he just got like big beefy dudes who, like high leadership, maybe not even high leadership guys, but character guys, locker room guys, beefy type of dudes, good against the run. But like the pass rush productivity with any of his signings just had not been there, Tom. Like that is the most important thing.
100% Snyder. I think he's been driven by traits, and that's I think we have a very large pattern now that's what drives him. And there's just so much. And that's the thing, Snyder, like what's frustrating about this whole dilemma is like pass rush is one of, I don't want to say it's an easy position to figure out because, translating from college to pros or guys breaking out late in their career, like there's so many unpredictable factors. But among all of the positions, pass rush is usually pretty stable. Guys who win their reps in college and are athletic usually do that in the NFL. Or I will say, the ones that do that in the NFL were usually doing it in college. It's usually very stable from the college level to the NFL level. And that's just something they really haven't valued. They think that they could take these raw athletic guys. Those guys just like never – I think the hit rate is a lot lower than it seems like when we draft them in the moment that, oh, my God, he has all this potential. When in reality, like the hit rate is really low on those guys in comparison to what we think it is. So – I think he's been a victim of that thought process, and that needs to change. And also, Snyder, this is a good and a bad thing, and I won't put all the blame on him. He's invested a lot of his premium capital in offense, and that's fine. I actually don't disagree with that train of thought, especially where the offense was when he inherited the team. But the reality is, if you're going to use your top picks, or if you're going to use your mid-round picks on edge rushers and D linemen, those guys have a hard time panning out anyway. So the money spent, it's hard to defend, right? Like, I don't agree with a lot of the moves he's made, spending money on the defensive line. But in reality, he's really put a lot of his premium offensive or premium draft capital in the offense. And I think we'll probably see that change coming this time around. But he's absolutely needs to do a better job across the board. I mean, it's not like the defensive line was the only problem. Snyder, You've been one of the only people that have talked about this. The safety position was also really, really poor this past game. You really saw Kevin Byard's age. They put him in conflict a ton, the Lions did. And you really saw him struggle to run with guys. Same thing at the linebacker level. TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds, his head was spinning. He did not know how to defend a play-action play to save his life. And it was all bad. And that's what led to the Lions being able to drop 50 points.
Yeah, and Tom, to add, a little bit more dirt to the wound, I don't know if you want to touch into this yet, but we lost Jalen Johnson for the year, right?
Yes.
And then, Tom, I was a believer in Tyreek Stevenson. I said, okay, he's going to be a good fit for Dennis Allen. He's a more physical press corner, in your face. Tom, I could have been more wrong. This guy is just giving up yards after yards, and he is just getting absolutely abused, Tom. He looks lost out there. So you combine, again, I think we could talk another hour about the defensive line, Tom, where we went wrong, but it doesn't end there, right? Now, without Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon being injured, this quarterback who I thought going into this season, it was a strength. I thought we had 3 solid starters. I thought we had intriguing depth pieces that could have, been battling out for the starting spot. You lose Terrell Smith for the preseason. You lose Zach Frazier, who I thought from a measurement skill set standpoint really was going to give some guys a run for the money and maybe even team the field. We lose him. So a strength that we thought going into the season, and I can't blame Ryan Poles for that. I can't criticize it, but it's just that it's another big blow that unfortunately that's not working out for us.
Yeah, I think the overall Steiner, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think the overall sentiment that I have with how Ryan Poles and this entire staff, the entire Bears regime, I think they've been way too comfortable with some of the guys that they've signed, especially in the back end. And they're kind of paying for that now. I mean, listen to these coverage grades. Tremaine Edmonds, coverage grade of 38.4. Tyreek Stevenson, a coverage of 37.3. Nahshon Wright, a coverage grade of 35.8. Nick McLeod, a coverage grade of 35.4. Kevin Byard, a coverage grade of 26.5. I mean, that's just like, you can't win that way. Like, you're going to give up a lot of points. And it's one thing to be talent deficient, which the Bears are, or with the injuries that they have, they're kind of talent deficient. But then to also pair that with just looking totally unprepared and shell-shocked with what the Lions did, because that's what the Lions do, right? This wasn't a huge shock in terms of how they attacked the Bears. It was kind of a double whammy, which is why it led to like the putrid, pathetic performance that we just saw on Sunday.
Yeah, and then Tom, let me tap into the safeties a little bit right here. Kevin Byard for the Chicago Bears last year was a bright spot, but he wasn't one of the problems, right? And he was solid, graded out well, the film was fine, didn't make mistakes. But it just seems like for the Bears, the standards are so low, okay, we're good there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Here, and it goes back to the past couple of years, and I hate analyzing in hindsight, or you should have done this, coulda, woulda, but I value a long-term spot at safety very much so for teams, right? I just feel like that's the captain, that's the guy that you want to have a long-term staple that at safety that your secondary can grow with, because I think secondary as a whole, it's in unison, right? You need chemistry. You got to have a good feel for each guy's, right? So when you look at Jalen Johnson signed long-term, Kyler Gordon signed long-term, I think we should have had a safety signed long-term. And that goes back to, I really wanted Xavier McKinney. All right. Didn't get him. That's fine. Then I really wanted Javon Holland. And I knew it was never going to happen because I knew the Bears were so satisfied with Kevin Byard. But I just wanted a guy that gets hash-to-hash speed, or that versatility, maybe can cover a guy one-on-one, or just maybe move around a little bit. And I thought that was a Javon Holland. And I'm really upset that we didn't go after any of those guys in free agency, because we had, a post 30-year-old Kevin Byard who we could have got out of. But it doesn't stop there, Tom. I mean, I love the safety draft class with Xavier Watts, Ken Winston from Penn State, Andrew Makuba. You see him making plays. I just thought with the age and then the injury history and the up and down play of Jaquan Brisker, that we could have, threw some more resources out there, Tom, to kind of maybe create competition, maybe have a long-term piece, or just to have better depth in general. And the whole position has always been ignored under the Ryan Poles era. It's always been your depth guys were Jonathan Owens, Elijah Hitt, the 6th, 7th round undrafted free agent guys. And Tom, on Sunday, we really, really paid for that. And there's just no answer, no one you can turn to. And, I just think it's very disappointing the way we've addressed that position group as a whole.
Yeah, I mean, you're totally spot on. I mean, for a guy like Shamar Turner to be inactive, right, a healthy scratch, and then I haven't watched these guys in depth, but watching the Sunday night game, when you see Xavier Watts just making plays all over the field, you see Makuba for the Eagles making plays all. It's we love those guys, Snyder. We really wanted them at the time, and I think they can be making a huge difference. They'd be adding more juice on the back end, and just some more youth at a position that the Bears really, really needed. I haven't watched Brisker under a microscope. But yeah, I mean, he's on the last year of his deal too. So there's going to be a lot of uncertainty heading into next season if this doesn't turn around. And we just brought up Jalen Johnson's out for the year. That is like, I think, the most pivotal non-offensive injury the Bears could have suffered, because it really just totally handcuffs you and how you want to play. Like, do you want to like leave guys like Nahshon Wright, Nick McLeod in man coverage a whole lot? Like as much as Dennis Allen wants to do that, probably not. So yeah, I mean, it's a gut punch to an already gut punch type of loss. This defense has a lot of problems. I think obviously the root of them, I think, is just they're not very talented. And then paired with Dennis Allen wants to play like he has a talented defense. So one of those things is going to have to change. I don't expect them to get a whole lot more talented in the middle of the season. That's probably going to be a 2026 problem. So Dennis Allen, in order for them to salvage this, I think he's just really going to have to like totally unload the chamber every single game, get really, really exotic, bring a lot of different pressures, which, you know, is definitely in the realm of possibilities. It's a shame that a group that had as much optimism as it did, the returns through a preseason game, which we talked about, Snyder. We were like, okay, this is not looking great. We're worried about this. And then they really came to show against a good offense with the Lions.
Yeah. And then that's the thing with this Bears team, Tom. Like, I made a tweet, and I'm pretty sure, I'm like 99% certain that the Bears, as far as like salary cap, they rank last in dead cap, right? Which is actually it's something to be proud of, right? Like, you haven't had a lot of bad contracts. You haven't had to cut, trade, move on from bad contracts very quickly. I guess I can give Ryan Poles credit there. I think maybe we're $5 million in dead cap, right? And maybe early on, his first couple of years, you've seen a lot of dead cap that Ryan Pace did leave over. You see teams like the Cowboys, 49ers, they're like sitting on $40-50 million in dead cap, right? And in the Bears situation, when you're only sitting on $5 million dead cap and you're pressed against the salary cap, that means all the money's on the field, right? You can't say, oh, well, you know, you have 20, 30, whatever $million in dead cap, and that's kind of, you know, holding the talent back on the field. No, this all on the field, right? So if you're telling me like all the money is on the field and this is your return, that's pretty damning, Tom, especially when you have a quarterback on a rookie deal. You know, you have other guys on rookie deals, and how you're thinking long term on a GM that just got extended. What does it look like if he has a $40, $50, $60 million quarterback on his books? You don't feel good about it, do you? Right? And this is the guy you just extended, Tom. So I mean, I know I'm looking really ahead here, but I mean, that's a concern that I have here, and I think needs to be talked about.
It's definitely a concern. The fact that he earned the extension the way he did, I mean, there was just no reason. There was no reason to extend him the way they did. I mean, this marriage between him and Ben Johnson is new. I understand they probably want to keep some type of continuity, but I think there's been a lot more misses than there has been hits in terms of a talent evaluation. You know, I think there's still like TBD on a lot of the offensive guys because those are the, you know, again, where the premium picks were invested. But on the defensive side of the ball, there's just been not a lot of hits in free agency or in the draft. I mean, Tremaine Edmonds looking like a huge whiff. We talked about it. Deo, Grady. My expectations are kind of low. And then, you know, Sweat had a decent game per PFF standard. I just don't think Sweat is like this game-changing presence that they maybe thought he was, that they thought they could roll with him as their top guy heading into this year. So it kind of leaves you in a spot, standard, where there's a lot of work that needs to be done in this roster. Again, it's week 2. Things can change in a fly. Maybe some of these players start to turn it around, but I think there's going to have to be some hard discussions on who's going to make it in this roster for 2026 when they can maybe reload again and spend their money a lot more wiser than they did, because that 2025 free agent class is really worrying me, and they're tied to those guys for at least next year.
Oh yeah, they get expensive next year, Tom.
Yes.
I see Deo somewhere a $20 million cap hit. Grady, $20 million cap hit. Like, and then, you know, even talk about Jordan Jackson. I think he's somewhere in the 20s. So you got $60 million to those 3 guys next year. You're not going to get out of them, Tom. It's not a good look there, Tom. But again, I think we could maybe transition to the offense, Tom, because there's some more tough conversations I think me and you are going to have on this pod.
Yeah, there's definitely some conversations that I did not think we'd get here in week 2. But
Yep.
yeah, we'll talk about it. But why don't we transition to the offense? Snyder, it's always hard to evaluate the offense when the game gets as out of hand as it did. Like the menu of plays that you can call when you're down by like 3 touchdowns in the third quarter kind of goes out the window. And you're really just dropping back and passing. You're in like 2-minute situations all the time. You're in hurry up. You're in catch up mode. So again, it's kind of hard to evaluate what's stable about this. But at the same time, I was really encouraged with how the offense was playing in the first half and when the game was within reach. Caleb Williams from a clean pocket on this past game had a 90.4 PFF grade. He was averaging 8 yards per attempt. He was 18 of 25 for 199 yards. That's how it felt on tape. Like I liked the decisions he was making. I liked the structure of the play calling. I thought he was just being very decisive, willing to test all parts of the field. He was ripping off some intermediate chunk games to Rome and to DJ Moore. I just thought he was accurate too. There was just a lot to like about how in that small window, I wouldn't even say it's small, in that window of time when the game was within reach and the Bears were allowing him to play within structure, I really, really liked it. And I thought it was definitely a step forward from last game, but overall, a huge step forward from last season. So that was really encouraging to me. Really, what it came down to, Snyder, penalties and turnovers just it totally erased this
Yeah.
team's potential to build upon what they were doing in that time frame. That I feel like all the momentum really shifted when DeAndre Swift fumbled, and then there was just a bunch of dumb penalties that really put them behind the sticks. I think there was a stat that the Bears had the most second and third and longs of any team through 2 weeks so far, and it kind of feels like that. But I would say that process-wise, beyond the dumb mental mistakes and penalties, I was ultimately encouraged by the offense. It looked better. What Ben Johnson was running looked better, and I thought Caleb Williams definitely played a lot better.
You know what, Tom? Through the midst of all this storm, right, and all the darkness that we're filtering through, if you would have told me this, a couple years ago or even last year that we had a head coach and a quarterback that we're still very, very intrigued about, we still feel good about, and they're making strides together. I mean, you've seen through week 1 and week 2 that Ben Johnson is getting guys open, right? He's making the job easier for Caleb Williams, right? And the more that they get on the same page and the more that they grow together, Tom, for me, that's almost all you need, right? I know that it sounds like the standards are so low there and everything, but ultimately, through all this, that was always the most important thing. And I think I may have kind of lost sight of that. Seeing Caleb make these improvements, right, with time to throw, in clean pockets, becoming more accurate, understanding, the playbook and chemistry with Ben Johnson. Ultimately that is the most important thing here, right? And to see the growth in that thing, it's like it's messed up to say, but it's keeping you from jumping off the ledge, right? Because right, because that's so important for that to connection. I mean, the only time we've really ever seen it, Tom. I don't know. I love going back here. I mean, you see it a short period of time with Adam Gase and Jay Cutler, or I think Trestman and Cutler for a little, whatever, right? And then you've seen a little bit with, but there were issues there, right? Like there's nothing like long term that you've seen there, and then you've seen it with Nagy and Trubisky year 1. But if you really locked into it, you knew like, okay, hey, Trubisky really ain't it here, right? He's not doing anything special. But I think this is, I know it's so early. This is like the first time where you actually feel good about both parties, head coach, quarterback, and you actually have like a long-term vision that could actually come out of it, Tom. So that's why it's so important. You kind of breaking it down to me, Tom, like on tape live, it looked a lot worse than it was. But you like kind of like, bringing me up to speed with everything, Tom. I feel a lot more encouraged about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good way to put it. It didn't feel as good, especially when the game got out of hand. I think there were some times Caleb was holding on to the ball too long, maybe took some sacks he shouldn't have. The protection in this game was not good. I think the interior offensive line played okay, but the tackles really, really struggled. Braxton Jones, Darnell Wright had very, very rough games. Again, that needs to be more consistent. Braxton Jones, my expectations are not as high. Darnell Wright, in order for him to establish himself as one of the best players at his position, he cannot have games like this. He really struggled. But all things considered, when Caleb was able to stay clean, I thought he was finding the right guy. He was hitting guys in stride, and he was really challenging the defense in spots he wasn't last year. And that was why I was really encouraged. I thought he was just seeing the field really well, making the right reads. Ben Johnson said the same thing. He's like, this was growth from week 1 to week 2, and it's definitely growth. And why, Steiner, it's important with the clean pocket. Like when I brought that up, I probably should have explained this. Clean pocket passing is the most stable. PFF has found is the most stable way to evaluate quarterbacks. So if you're good from a clean pocket, that usually is pretty sticky, which means it usually carries over week to week to week. Like the best quarterbacks are usually great from a clean pocket. And this is why we were always worried about Trubisky and Justin Fields. They never could really establish themselves within a clean pocket. And right now, I think this is a step forward for Caleb to play as well as he did when things were clean, when he was playing within structure. That was what everyone wanted to see him take a step forward. Again, it's only week 2. Things can change. But if we're talking about progress, I think that was a step in the right direction. And Steiner, just to put some stats to what happened against the Lions in terms of penalties, the Bears had 8 penalties to go back 50 yards against them. So again, that can't happen. That's stuff that needs to be cleaned up. That's a coaching issue. I know it's new stuff for these guys in terms of the pre-snap procedure and stuff like that. Darnell Wright keeps getting false starts, but those penalties really need to get eliminated. And I think that we'll see a better product results wise, that we can appreciate the process of what's going on and the steps they're taking on offense.
And that's a frustrating thing, Tom. When you're doing that, you're just shooting yourself in the foot, right? You find yourself in a 2nd and 35, or a 1st and 20. It just totally killed what you could do, right, on the whole entire offense. And it's hurting, Tom. Tom, where did you want to go next? Because I'd love to talk about the wide receivers and the offensive line in general.
Yeah, we can definitely talk about the wide receivers. I think Rome Odunze, the drops need to clean up. I think he's had way too many drops these past 2 weeks. I think just in general, Rome Odunze was never someone I thought had a drop issue, but even last year, in those tough catch situations, it's not because he was good in contested catches. So I don't want to say that all the time, but on those ones he really had to extend out, he needs to come down with those. There were too many drops this past game. But overall, I think the breakout is here, Senator. You just see him totally dusting guys on tape.
Yeah.
I'm really, really encouraged what we saw with Rome Odunze. Honestly, the receivers in general, I thought they had a pretty strong game.
Yeah, see, it's funny, Tom. And this is why I love the way we evaluate, right? You bring out the drops, catching through contact. That's the first thing you talk about Rome Odunze. But we both know he had 128 yards and 2 touchdowns, right? You look at that, and But anyway, I agree, Tom. Right? You have to give him his flowers, right? The guy has been separating. He's been producing. Even after the catch, Tom, that crosser that he had, he just made that guy completely miss. I've always said Roma Odunze's been sneaky underrated after the catch. Get him the ball. He's gonna make a guy miss, right? It's not as dynamic as some guys, but he's sneaky with it, right? It's almost like how Rashee Rice does it a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. But I think Rome Odunze has a little bit. If he makes one guy miss, I think he has a little bit more long speed, right? If he gets it going. But you also have to give credit to Caleb there, right? That connection is real. Caleb, that's his guy. When shit hits the fan, that's the guy he looks to. But not just their time. I'm talking about even on timing, right? He hits a Odunze more on time, across the middle of the field, on the crosser with anticipation, and it just leads him into the route really, really well, Tom. So, here, even let me dial it back a little bit. Ben Johnson, Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze, that connection, seeing growth with that core right there, I mean, if this was a rebuild year, Tom, and which I think it technically is now, if you
Yeah.
just told me like, hey, Caleb Williams is gonna Ben Johnson is the guy who proved himself as a coach. Caleb Williams has 4,000 plus yards and he's showing growth, and Odunze becomes like your wide receiver, 1,200-yard guy. You feel so good about everything, right? But then there's one guy in the front office that there are just so many things that you don't feel good about it. At times it's going to overshadow that, right? It's a weird conversation to have, or I don't know, a weird discourse, I guess.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. It's like a catch-22. Like there are things you should be encouraged about, but it's like being way overclouded by like the state of this roster beyond those things you should be encouraged about.
Yep.
And the results too, like are just not really PRing for the things you should be encouraged about. But there are things you should be encouraged about. I mean, I saw we got a question about like why Caleb isn't targeting the tight end. I think that was just kind of more of the game plan with the defense. The defense runs a lot of man coverage. I think Coastal Loveland can beat man coverage, but again, he didn't play a lot in this one. I think he's just going to have to earn snaps as a rookie, especially over Komet. And that's just not really like you're usually targeting your wide receivers against man coverage. And Rome Odunze was torching man coverage. That last, I know it was in garbage time, but he totally made Terrion Arnold fall on a double move. And it was just like, wow, like, this is the guy we drafted 9th overall. He looks great. As long as he can clean those drops up, I mean, we're talking about a guy who can be a top 15 receiver in this league, in my opinion. That's how good Rome Odunze looked. I'm very encouraged about that. Senator, I didn't think any of the other receivers played bad. Like we're going to talk about DJ Moore, but I thought DJ Moore played well. I thought, the things we saw last year, the frustration, the body language, I don't think we've seen that. At least I haven't noticed it to the degree that we saw last year. But I don't know, Senator, the Bears, that's one of their strengths, right? The wide receiver room. And I brought it up on Twitter, like he could be a possible trade candidate because they have so many other needs elsewhere and they're strong at receiver. They probably want to see what they have in Luther Burden. I would not be shocked if DJ Moore is an eventual trade candidate.
I actually wanted to ask you because the headline that's been soaring all over Bears Twitter is Ben Johnson says he wasn't happy with the effort with some guys without the ball in their hands. Tom, when you rewatched, did you, like you said, you didn't really see that with DJ Moore, did you?
I didn't notice it. I'll maybe have to go back and watch it. I truly did not notice if that was the case. I know sometimes like with Loveland, he looks like he's thinking out there quite a bit. And that kind of slows things down. That was one of the things I noticed, but he's a rookie. I don't think it was an effort issue at all. I think he's just kind of getting the feel for where he's supposed to be in this offense. I thought, Snyder, I'm not going to lie, a couple of the reps I saw Burden on, I was not thrilled with some of the effort of his routes. Which, people are really clamoring for him to play. I think as long as that's the case, he's not going to play. But yeah, I mean, I did not personally notice some of DJ Moore's effort. If people were alluding that was who he was talking about, but maybe I'll have to go back and watch.
And that was kind of my point here, Tom. It seems like everyone had just turned on DJ Moore. Anything, if Ben Johnson makes one comment like that, it's DJ Moore in here. When I'm finally entertaining the trade of DJ Moore. And the reason I am entertaining the trade, Tom, has more so to do with money, right? I think if you could trade him, I think right now is a good, I don't need to call it sell high. It's a really smart time to trade DJ Moore, right? He's 28 years old. I think he's still a really good wide receiver, Tom. He is so strong at the catch point. He's good route runner. He's, great across the middle of the field, super dynamic. Tom, I think he'd really help a team like the Bills. And, crazy to say, I think he'd be perfect for the Packers. But my thing is like, hey, you're 0-2. The connection, you're not really utilizing him, as much as you really should, in my opinion. It's not a knock on Caleb. Or even Ben Johnson. It's just he's just not getting involved the way he should. I think he could still make stuff happen. I think he's super reliable. But you have to have the conversation. He's 28 years old. you could eat a ton of his salary right now to drive up the return, trade him to maybe the Chiefs, to trade him to a contender. Maybe, I know a first round pick sounds crazy, right? Maybe at this point, but even getting a second or third, or just something along the line, eat as much money as you can. I just think it makes a lot of sense. And again, ideally, I don't want to trade him, right? Because I think him and Odunze, and then just kind of rotating Burden against the Keys, I think that's such a strength and puts Caleb in such a good situation. And I think it helps what it could do for the offense, Tom. So I want him to stay, but I think it's just a tough conversation that you have to have. And it's no, like, I'm not saying like, oh, DJ Moore is trash, or, he doesn't buy in, or yada, 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 like some of the other fans are just jumping the gun and turning on him for. But I just think for me, it's more of a financial thing.
100%. That's where I'm at with it too. The writing's kind of on the wall, right? They drafted Luther Burden. I'm not saying that's like a 1-for-1 replacement, but they drafted Luther Burden. They have other needs on the roster. DJ Moore's kind of at that age where I wouldn't say a decline's coming, because I don't think he's declining at all, but like he's right at that age where it might be a good time to sell. And there's definitely a need out there across the league. I think you could definitely get a very good return for him. Yeah, first round pick, I'm not 100% sure, but you could definitely get a second round pick, if not a little more than that. So I would not be shocked at all. They can do it financially too. I wish we knew the details of how they can do it, because if they like went out and cut him, they're on the hook for a bunch of dead money. But if they trade him, they are able to save a lot of money this year and in 2026. So I definitely think it should be on the table. It's a shame, because in an ideal world, I would not want to trade DJ Moore. I think you're putting a lot on Burden to be ready right away. And you're kind of really like lessening your room of weapons for Caleb Williams for the time being. But at the same time, like, I don't have high expectations of this team like competing or anything like that. I think it's just really going to be about linear growth. And I just don't know if I don't know if it makes feasible sense to keep DJ Moore around when you have so many other needs on this roster for 2026.
Yeah, and I guess my issue is, Tom, and again, I don't want this to be taken as like a Caleb or a Ben problem, but here, you got 10 targets for Rome Odunze. I love that. Like, I'm not mad at that, but my issue is, you see only 6 targets for DJ Moore, and you see Olamide Zaccheaus right there with 5, right? So I just don't think that there should be a world where DJ Moore and Olamide Zaccheaus should be commanding a similar target share, right? I like Olamide Zaccheaus for who he is. Don't get me wrong. I think he's a great depth piece. I just think DJ Moore gives you so much more, right? So I really wish that it was DJ Moore and Odunze really dominating the targets together, dominating the receptions together. And then the next guy is, Loveland, right? Like, that's how I wish it really was, but it's just the connection's not there. I don't know. The game script, I don't know what it is, Tom, but again, not criticizing anyone individually for that, but if that's what it's going to be moving forward, where he's neck and neck with Olamide Zaccheaus, why are you paying this guy $28 million, and why are you going to keep him on the hook next year? Or why are you going to wait to trade him next year when you could probably get a good return to a competing team right now while he's 28? It doesn't make sense to keep him at the price tag and what you could potentially get and what it could allow for you moving forward if this is going to be the target share he's commanding on this team.
Totally agree. I think it's a good time to sell, and I can't believe we're here in week 2. I never would have thought that we would be here. I thought the Bears would maybe be a bit more competitive, but it's just, again, it's starting off to be one of those seasons. But I think, Center, we've seen teams with new coaching staff. It takes time, right? It takes time across the board. We gave the Bears defense a lot of slack, but again, this is a pretty different defense than what they were in years prior. So, it was going to take time. I think they'll start to find their groove. They'll get better at game planning as the season goes on. But obviously, the initial returns are not great. I still am not panicking. I know a lot of fans are panicking. Same old Bears. If we were as high on Ben Johnson as we were, our priors were really, really high. Our priors were high on Caleb. I think we would be doing a disservice to ourselves to just throw everything out after 2 games. And in this past game, the offense looked good. Like for chunks of this game, like the stable parts of like evaluating an offense in a neutral game script with a clean pocket, all those things that kind of carry over week in, week out. There was positivity. There was steps in the right direction. And I think when guys have a better feel for this offense and stop making so many mental mistakes, it's only going to get better. Like guys are only going to get more comfortable. Caleb is only going to operate this thing faster. I think that's probably my big thing with him right now. And Ben Johnson even says that he's maybe just like a tick late on some throws. Like I don't think he's late to the point where it gets him in trouble like Justin Fields, but you'd wish he saw things just like a little bit faster. That's only going to get better with time, in my opinion. So, and the fact that he's already playing as fast as he is in a new offense in week 2, again, encouraging sign. I'm very, very encouraged. Sorry. Here, if you want to respond to that, go for it, because I do want to talk about one more thing.
You know what? I think I was going to transition, and we might be wanting to talk about the same thing. But I actually had a question for you, Tom, and I wanted to transition to the ground game, right? Okay. You look at the performance, right, by a DeAndre Swift, and you see he had, 12 attempts for 63 yards, and you see 5.3 yards per attempt. And outside looking in, that looks pretty good. But Tom, I wanted to have this conversation with you because I think Mina Kimes tweeted, and you just see like the EPA efficiency, it's really, really bad. But when I see that 5.3 yards per attempt, I give credit to Ben Johnson there, right? Mm-hmm. There's got to be something that he's doing to get that, right? And then it goes back to the conversation. Hey, if we improved at the running back position there, Tom, that's something I think you could build on with a better player, right? If you're averaging 6 yards per attempt there, that would unlock something, Tom, for this offense that would just make us so much better of an offense, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I kind of wanted to talk about that, Tom, and get your opinion kind of on that stat line and maybe just how we looked in general in the run game as a whole. I mean, I got you. It's fair to say it was an improvement, but at the same time, I know all the advanced metrics are still pretty damning.
Yeah, I think that the biggest adjustment that they made is they just kind of got Swift on the perimeter. This is just in general. I should probably look at week 2. I can look at week 2 right now. Give me 1 second. So in week 2, I think they just kind of scrapped the inside run game and they stopped trying to run in the tackle so much. And I thought that really helped Swift from a yards per carry standpoint. If we're just looking at percentage of runs that happen outside the tackles, the Bears were 51.9%. So it was about kind of even, but that was way more than they had last week. But when you're talking in general about the run game, Snyder, yeah, I thought it was a little better when the game script, again, was pretty neutral. But some of the big concerning things that are just screaming out to me that I cannot ignore. You obviously brought up the efficiency stats. Snyder, yards before contact. The Bears are number 2 in yards before contact among all teams in the NFL. So they rank second in the most yards before contact. So that means the offensive line, the scheme is actually pretty good, right?
Yeah.
They are the last team in yards after contact right now. So the complete opposite, right? Like, and that just goes to show you, like,
oh man,
the running back room is a problem. It's a huge problem. And I think we see that when they try to lean into the meat and potatoes of who Ben Johnson wants to be. And Snyder, I think you see opposing teams know it. Like their linebackers do not bite up at play action at all. Like I think you see Caleb try to push the ball down deep down the field on those plays because that second level is cut off. And again, that's like a Ben Johnson staple. Like that's probably a game plan element too, but there's no run game to threaten the linebackers right now. And I think it's really hurting this team. I mean, just among all of the efficiency stats, the Bears 22nd in success rate in rushing EPA. I think they're second to last. So there's a ton of reasons to be leery of what they're currently doing at the run game. And I'm not saying, obviously, I don't believe in Swift, but I'm not saying there's an answer on the roster. Like, I don't think it's as easy as just being like, okay, yeah, give Kyle Monangai more carries. Like, I don't think it's that easy. I think they just truly need an upgrade at this position.
Yeah, and then Tom, I don't even want to have this conversation really, but like it's one of those things, And don't get me wrong, I still love the Loveland pick. I think when he gets rolling, he is gonna be an absolute difference maker, a unicorn there. But you know, why I wanted Ashton Genty was for that stat that you said, right? How we're number 2 in yards before contact, but we don't have anything going there, right? But if you did just have like an elite talent running back, or even somewhere in the middle, even if you gave me like a RJ Harvey or like a Doug or just someone, in their time, it unlocks so much more. I think maybe this isn't a Genty conversation. Maybe this is a conversation that you probably should have took a running back somewhere in round 2 to round 4 in this draft. And I think it actually would have really unlocked something in this. Because, Tom, that stat line is damning, right? It gives you credit. It gives Ben Johnson his credit, right? But if you had a guy who was maybe making a guy, like you seen like on the Sunday night game, the way Bijan was just making guys miss. Right? If you had just a fraction of that ability in your running back time, you're talking about you probably could have averaged like over 6 yards per attempt last game. And if you average 6 yards per attempt, what that opens up in the play action, how unpredictable it makes an offense, how it just wears and tears a defensive unit, Tom. It could have unlocked something so much more. And it's a shame that you have DeAndre Swift, who's really just holding that part of your offense from being completely unlocked, because it would really be a game changing type of impact if we had more juice there, right? More, in between the tackles, more making guys miss, running through contact time. It would really, really give you a lot more. That's just really what's frustrating me.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for this Bears offense as it currently stands. Like, if I could wish for one thing to be stable, it would be the run game, because Ben Johnson is a great play caller, play designer, but like, he is not at his full potential when it's not balanced. Like we saw in this game, and honestly against the Vikings in some extent, a lot of their plays kind of went out the window because they don't have that run game to lean on.
Yep.
And that's what struggled. And we talked about this, Snyder, before the season. I think there are promising things of what you can ask Swift to do. I think they kind of tapped into that this game. But like the elements of the down in and down out consistency, what you need from a running back for this specific scheme with the offensive line that you have around this scheme, the zone running, that's where I was really concerned. I was really concerned if, okay, Swift has never been a good zone runner in his career, and they're asking him to be like the primary guy. And that was because the zone running stuff is what's tied. That's what's married to the play action game. And if teams aren't threatened by the run game, your play action is not going to be as effective. I know that's kind of been a debate among football discourse, but I think teams are playing the play action play better than they ever have before. And if you don't have that run game to really threaten it, that's kind of the root of what Ben Johnson wants to do. So it's a huge concern. Again, what kind of investments do you want to make in season? What kind of differences do you want to make in season to fix it? I don't know, Snyder. I think there's a running back that's just readily available that's going to come in and fix this thing. Yeah. But I do think we'll start to see more of a split. I mean, we even saw Monangai play a lot more in this one. But again, I'm not saying Monangai is going to come in and fix this. Like, I think this is going to be a soft spot for the Bears for pretty much the remainder of the year.
And that's the frustrating thing with Monangai, right? Good story. You feel good about it. Tom, I think he's a powerful runner, but Tom, he looks really slow, right? When he gets out of his break or he cuts out, he looks so slow. And then I just still see him get really abused in pass protection at this level. So it's just one of those things. It's like, I get, Swift really, really underperforming there, but it just sucks that there's just not an answer. There's not like a 4th round swing or whatever that we could actually, or I'm sorry, a 4th round swing that we don't know about. I'm not talking about Roschon or anything, but that we can't like maybe, all right, let's try this guy, right? Like, there's just nothing there, Tom. And it just sucks that it seems like we have to deal with this all season.
And it's so frustrating, Snyder, because like the fact that we could see these concerns, and I'll even, put some I'll put some blame on Ben Johnson. Like, you've worked with Swift, you got the most out of him in the role he's always should have been. And the way they handled this, it was just like, what are you guys expecting to be different? And that's what was very, very disheartening. Again, another criticism of Ryan Poles. I mean, just the signing from the jump, and then just to kind of damn yourself again. It's kind of like that that Goofy meme where Goofy, like the evil Goofy, fucking do it again. That's what they that's what they did with Swift,
100%,
and this run game. So yeah, I mean, it's got to get better in order for, I think, this offense to really be rolling the way we want it to. And I'm sure it's going to be when this season is over. Again, it's week 2. Like, there's still a lot of football to be played. But that's going to be a huge talking point. How can the Bears replicate more of what the Lions' run game is, having 2 good backs they can rely on instead of one back they can't rely on? So that's kind of where we're at with the Bears offense. I think, Snyder, too, you're seeing a lot of early mistakes with the offensive line in terms of like picking up protections and stuff like that, which I think will kind of ease itself out throughout the year. They really struggled, I think, to pick up some of the blitzes in this game. They were thrown off by stunts. But again, this is a new group playing with each other. And I hopefully, because we know Ben Johnson was so good at that in Detroit, that will even itself out. They'll get better at picking up some of the blitzes, especially as the season goes on. There's more tape out there to kind of game plan for that kind of stuff.
Let me ask you, I'm not looking at it right now, but it seemed like we had a plan to kind of slow down Aiden Hutchinson, right? Like I've seen like Darnell Wright that was getting a lot of help there and everything. And I thought that was credit to the coaching staff that they didn't, he made plays, right? I think when he was lined up against Braxton Jones, he got absolutely dominated. And I think we've seen a little of that. I think Braxton Jones gave up 7 pressures. I mean, it was really, really bad. But I did see the coaching staff at least trying to make a valiant effort to try to stop Aiden Hutchinson here. And I think they were pretty successful at that. So I think that, just from a coaching standpoint, is a little bit of W there.
Yeah, I think they did a good job slowing him down. I think it opened themselves up to other problems. I think just like they were not passing things off or blocking things up correctly, probably because they were having so much attention to Aiden Hutchinson. And that's what having those game-changing players does for you. It unlocks so much for you because teams have to worry about them, and then you can kind of screw up everything they're trying to do. But yeah, I mean, I think they did a decent job slowing them down. I thought the blitzes that the Lions were throwing at the Bears gave them a lot of trouble. I thought Caleb and the protection plans, that was kind of when they got into the most trouble. So again, that was also when the Bears were just sitting ducks and had to pass every single play. So again, there's like only so much you can take away from like such a weird game script.
I think my problem is, Tom, my bad. I think my problem is that here, like you could help Aiden, you could help Darnell Wright, and you could stop Aiden Hutchinson. It can go successful, but the problem is like then you have Braxton Jones losing one-on-one reps to like Al-Qaeda Muhammad, right? Getting pushed back. And like that's the problem, right? In most cases, if you have a competent left tackle, it would have worked like really damn well, right? But then you see guys, even Jonah Jackson, losing one-on-one to just normal dudes who've been floating around to the league. Like that's the frustrating part.
It's very frustrating. And I still don't think Braxton Jones looks quite like himself. Like I still think he's trying to get over that injury, but like you wish the Bears had a better plan if that was going to be the case. I mean, he suffered a pretty serious injury, and the fact that they're not even confident in Ozzie Trapilo like being the backup left tackle, it's not a great sign. And I think it's going to be again another issue the Bears are going to have to kind of work around. But yeah, I mean, hopefully that can get better throughout the season where Braxton Jones might start playing like his old self to where he can be a little bit better, because right now it has not been great through 2 weeks. And yeah, Senator, I just think that the protection overall has not been what they paid for it to be. I would say just across the board. But I think that stuff will ease through the struggles over time. And it's just so new right now for all parties involved.
That's fair.
Other than that, though, I don't think there's really much else to cover for this game. We'll be back to preview the Cowboys game, which I was going to go to. So I'm not going to that game anymore.
No, dude, I already made an agreement. Like when I go to the games, I usually go with my cousin and my uncle. I'm like, dude, I'm not spending $300-400 to go watch this game. It just I'd rather watch the noon slate of games with Red Zone, chilling inside. And, it's no.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But we'll be back to preview that game. I think there will be more reasons for optimism. But until we meet again, y'all, keep it real. Fair enough.
Fair enough.